Two groups of college students sat in identical rooms, watched the identical videotape, listened to the same man speak the same words in the same accent, and rated his physical appearance as measurably different. Not slightly different, substantially different. One group found him appealing, the other found him grating. Same face, same footage, same 40 minutes of tape. The only thing that moved was the number in their heads. This is where the story begins, and it begins with a question most people never think to ask. Do you actually know why you feel the way you feel about someone? In 1977, two researchers named Richard Nisbett and Timothy Wilson designed something quieter than a typical psychology experiment. They were not trying to prove that people are biased. Everyone already assumed that. What they wanted to know was stranger and more specific. When a bias operates on a person, can that person detect it happening inside their own mind? Do human beings have conscious access to the machinery that generates their own judgments, or do they simply experience the output and mistake it for direct perception? To test this, they built a controlled scenario. A college instructor was filmed delivering the same lecture twice with the same content, the same phrasing, nearly identical timing. In one version, he behaved warmly, friendly, encouraging, approachable. In the other version, he behaved coldly, rigid, distant, authoritarian. Same man, same material. Two different interpersonal temperatures. Students were assigned to watch one version or the other. Afterward, they were asked to rate him, not on warmth, that would have been too obvious, but on his physical appearance, his mannerisms, even his accent. Traits that had nothing to do with how friendly he acted. Traits that were, by design, identical across both tapes. The researchers expected some bleed-through, a little contamination between how likable he seemed and how attractive he seemed. That would have been unsurprising. What they did not expect was what happened next, when they asked the students to explain themselves. The students who watched the warm version rated his appearance, his gestures, and his accent significantly higher than the students who watched the cold version. The same face was rated as more attractive in one condition and less attractive in the other. The same mannerisms read as charming in one group's eyes and irritating in the others. The same accent sounded pleasant to one half of the room and grating to the other half. But that was not the strange part. The strange part came when the researchers asked the students, directly and plainly, whether liking the instructor had influenced how they rated his physical traits. Most of them said no, not hesitantly, not with uncertainty. They said no with confidence, the way a person answers a question about their own name. And a significant number went further. They insisted the causality ran in the opposite direction. They did not like him because he seemed attractive. They believed he seemed attractive because they liked him. And they experienced that belief as a memory, as something they had directly observed rather than something their mind had quietly constructed after the fact. Consider what that means. These were not people lying to protect their egos. They had no reason to lie. The stakes were trivial, an academic study, an unfamiliar instructor on a screen. They were reporting with total sincerity an internal process that had never actually occurred. The specimen was not being deceptive. The specimen simply did not have the instrument to see what had happened inside it. This is the part of the human animal worth sitting with for a moment, because it reveals something most people walk through their entire lives without ever suspecting about themselves. This is the kind of blind spot that operates in you right now, today, without asking permission. If you want to keep noticing these mechanisms before they quietly make your decisions for you, subscribe to Cortex Patterns. So, what is actually happening inside the skull when this occurs? The architecture appears to work like this. The brain does not evaluate a stranger's traits one at a time, independently, like a checklist. Appearance here, competence there, honesty over in another column. That would be slow and expensive, and human cognition rarely chooses slow and expensive when a shortcut is available. Instead, the brain forms one global impression first, a fast, low-resolution verdict of like or dislike generated within seconds of contact, often before a single word of substance has been exchanged. Everything that follows is downstream of that verdict. Once the global impression exists, the brain does not go back and independently assess each specific trait. It reverse engineers the specific traits to remain consistent with the impression it has already formed. If the global signal says, "I like this person," then the appearance, the voice, the mannerisms are quietly recalculated to support that conclusion. If the global signal says, "I do not like this person," the same neutral details are recalculated in the opposite direction. The brain is not measuring reality and then feeling an emotion about it. It is feeling an emotion first and then manufacturing the reality that would justify it. And critically, this entire sequence happens below the threshold of conscious awareness. The brain does not lie when it denies the influence. Lying would require access to the true process, followed by a decision to conceal it. What is happening here is something closer to blindness. The inference engine runs, produces an output, and hands that output to consciousness labeled as direct observation. The mechanism does not announce itself. It only delivers a conclusion, dressed as a fact. Once you understand this, you begin noticing it everywhere in places far less controlled than a laboratory. A hiring manager shakes a candidate's hand, feels an immediate warmth, and 20 minutes later, rates that candidate as more competent, more articulate, more capable of leadership, despite having asked no question that actually measures those things. A person swiping through a dating profile assumes that a symmetrical face signals honesty, though nothing about bone structure has ever correlated with truth-telling. A co-worker's proposal is quietly upgraded in your estimation the moment you discover you enjoy their company, and the ideas themselves have not changed at all. A patient trusts a physician's diagnosis more when that physician smiles and remembers their name, even when a colder, more awkward physician down the hall holds superior credentials and a better diagnostic record. None of these people believe they are being irrational. Each one believes they are simply perceiving what is there. The downstream cost of this mechanism is not abstract. It shows up in promotion decisions where charisma is repeatedly mistaken for competence, elevating confident communicators over quietly capable ones. It shows up in courtrooms where juries have been shown, across multiple studies, to hand down more lenient sentences to defendants who are rated as likable or attractive, independent of the evidence presented. It shows up in the entire architecture of political campaigning and consumer advertising. Industries that do not need to convince you their product is good, they only need to make you like the messenger and trust the specific claims to assemble themselves afterward, exactly as Nisbett and Wilson students did in 1977. It shows up quietly, over years, in the accumulated pattern of trusting pleasant people over correct ones and mistaking the warmth of a conclusion for the evidence behind it. The species does not appear to be equipped with a warning light for this. There is no internal alert that fires when a global impression is quietly rewriting a specific judgment. The process feels from the inside exactly like seeing clearly, which leaves one detail worth noticing right now, in this exact moment. You have been listening to a voice for several minutes, a particular pace, a particular tone, a particular register of calm, clinical delivery. And somewhere beneath conscious tracking, a global impression of that voice has already formed. You are already deciding on some level whether this account is credible, not because you have checked the citation, not because you have reread the 1977 paper yourself, but because of how steady the voice sounded while it spoke. The mechanism does not pause for its own description. It is, in fact, running right now.